fluctuate. Sorry about that. This content may fluctuate each quarter depending on SLAs we want to highlight. So for the last quarter, we did have some items where we missed some SLAs. I'm going to dig into that for you. So starting with system availability. So we did have a miss on that particular SLA back at the end of May. You may recall the first instance was related to and impacted your call center staff. So call center staff had a period of 20 minutes on May 24th where they were unable to log into the system. We quickly diagnosed what that issue was and resolved it and put in a permanent change to prevent that from occurring again on May 30th. The next issue we had was on the 30th of May. And it was actually, we had a couple of instances related to our identity management or 4-drug platform. And we had what your users experience, your workers experience was if they were logged in and they timed out, they were unable to log back in again. We had about 3 occurrences of this, 2 in June as well. However, we're only reporting through May. But where we stand today on this instability, we had, some of you may have received an email from Arnold on Sunday. This past Friday night, we deployed some code changes in conjunction with working with the 4-drug vendor to add additional stability and performance into the 4-drug system. So as of today, the 4-drug team has been monitoring those changes. We have seen good stability as well as some improved performance through the authentication there in 4-drug. We'll continue to do hypercare on that platform for the next few weeks to ensure that we have continuity of service there and we don't see recurrence of these stability issues. When we get to the risk section later, there is that 4-drug continues to be a topic, and we'll talk a little bit more about some ongoing actions there and what we're doing with that particular platform. So that 4-drug incident did impact not only the system availability, but also system response times, SLAs as well. So it caused a cascade across multiple SLAs. Other items, batch continues to be running well. We consistently end batch around 5 p.m. 5 p.m. actually would be really bad if we ended batch 5 p.m. That was a little slip. So continues to be performing well. We continue to do tuning activities on our batch. We know with different changes we put in the system with releases as well as different times of the year, different batch cycles that we run. That continues to be an area of focus. So it is performant and stable at this time. Along with training environment, it is in here as well. We know that is a very key environment for you all. There's a lot of induction training that continues to occur in the county. So this is an environment we want to make sure is available. Nothing worse than being in a class and you can't actually get through the material. So that we had 100% availability there for that environment for the March to May timeframe. And with that, I'm actually now going to hand off to Rachel, and she'll cover the Benefits Cal SLAs.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to give an update on the performance for Benefits Cal for the last quarter. For the last quarter, Benefits Cal has been performing 100% against our service level agreements. And just a reminder that the way that we monitor and measure transactions for Benefits Cal is on a daily basis. And they are all tied to how fast the responses are for customers and CBOs in their interactions with Benefits Cal and the information that exchanged with Cal SAWS. For this last quarter, we have retained the same level of performance. As we've been adding more users, we have not seen any degradation in performance in the application. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah for the imaging SLAs.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Sarah Kiewit from Highland regarding the imaging SLAs for March through May. You can see the first one there for monthly uptime. We unfortunately had an incident in April, the day after a disaster recovery. That issue caused users to not be able to log into the system for about 81 minutes. And that was caused by an unexpected database issue that resulted in system slowness, which then created a login issue, preventing users from logging into the system. We do know how important it is and crucial it is to make sure county workers can log into the system. So we have taken measures to prevent this from occurring again in the future, including updating our disaster recovery procedures and a patch to resolve the login issue when there is slowness in the system went into production on May 12th. Regarding the other two items, the page views and the database transactions, we fulfilled those SLA obligations for March through May. That is the update from Highland for imaging.
Thank you, Sarah. While we're on imaging, I do want to just do a real-time update. So last week, it feels like it was last week, we did have reports on July 9th from several counties about imaging slowness. So the team mobilized and worked through that item. And in reality, what we found out that it was unrelated to imaging. However, we did have an issue with some of our networking and particularly some hardware, Cisco hardware. We worked with the vendor to upgrade that hardware and increase the capacity so we could resolve that network slowness. What we do see typically that the first areas that the counties and users experience slowness is in heavy data traffic, so images, as well as voice traffic. So often what we find is users might be calling in tickets around slowness in those two applications. However, sometimes they're just the canary, if you will. And in this instance, that was the case, and it was an underlying network and hardware item that needed to be updated in order to resolve that slowness. So I did want to address that because I know there was some questions that had come in and tickets from the counties on that last week. Moving on, this last box here, I'm going to go as that mustard or tan, I'm not sure. But we have a couple of other metrics we want to cover with you all. These are some metrics around one, kind of our workforce mix. So across the CalSource contract, the Benefits Cal contract, we do have both staff working onshore as well as offshore. And I'll let Rachel go first and she can talk about the Benefits Cal mix there.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So for Benefits Cal, we have nearly a 50-50 split, but we have more resources that are offshore that are supporting our expansion of development activities and our testing activities. None of the folks offshore have any access to production data, so we have that complement of onshore. So from a security perspective, that's how we have the resources divided. Just for reference, there is not a target for Benefits Cal in terms of an onshore versus an offshore mix. Lisa?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. So from a CalSource contract perspective, we are capped at doing 40% of work offshore. You'll see there for that quarter, we were at 35%. That number fluctuates a little bit depending on the type of work we are doing. As Rachel stated, there's restrictions on data access for offshore staff. And so depending on, what's in a particular release, for example, if we're doing a lot more correspondence activities, we may see a 1 or 2% increase in this percentage as we're working on form templates and with test data. And so this fluctuates a little bit between 35-40% depending on a given quarter. So that's the background on that one. In terms of cost of rework, this is specific to CalSource. So this, over time, the history with CalSource is all work was done on shore. There were requests a few years ago as we moved to this 40% offshore model just to report on kind of the cost of rework between the two locations. So this is something we continue to provide. You'll see there that there's de minimis differences there between onshore and offshore, and we continue to be below our overall threshold of where we want to be in terms of cost and quality. Again, making sure that we have, stable releases and quality, which I'm going to talk about in a few topics here when we get to 2407. So this is something we do monitor as well to make sure if there happen to be an anomaly or a spike, we'd investigate that to understand what occurred and how we would remediate that going forward.
So one thing to note on that bottom right box is the reason that that's important is that we want to make sure that the work that the offshore teams are doing doesn't result in a lot of costly rework. And so our JPA board had asked for us to continue to monitor that. And as you can see, and as Lisa mentioned, we don't see a significant, difference in terms of the cost of rework between onshore and offshore. So there's not a loss of quality of work as a result.
That topic.
All right, Albert.
Okay, any questions of the PSC members? Cindy.
I have a comment, sorry. Just on the forge rock issue, thank you, Lisa, for that report. I think we in the counties will continue to monitor as well. It was disruptive, not for a very long time. It was like little spurts, but it was the fact that it was consecutive days, I think, that caused the disruption. So thank you for monitoring and trying to find the issue around that. So we will continue to monitor as well. Thank you for reminding.
Hi there, good morning. Hi, this is Cindy Utes from Region 4. And I just wanted to appreciate also these statistics and information. It lets us know that it is being looked at and it is being monitored, and we do appreciate that. Some of the things, it's hard to quantify, I guess, the impacts and effects that it does have on our workers and staff. And so even though really, the numbers look pretty good when you look at the numbers, it does impact our workers on the floor. And so I do appreciate that it is being monitored and looked at and reported out on, because we do feel it in the county. And so just thank you for this report out.
Yeah. Yes, Cindy, I think we hear that, and obviously we want to be cognizant of the impacts to the county. One thing that we mentioned before, especially in the blast about this, was that the reason that this occurred was because CalSAWS was trying to evolve and support a more integrated session management solution, because we've heard from the counties that it's frustrating, right? You're over here and this logs out because you're not active over in this session. And so the reason this occurred was because we had deployed an enhancement to offer more integrated session management, and that caused a significant uptick in terms of activities. And so that we hear that some of these things are, as we learn, and we have a manual process that we're looking to automate in the future. These things we hear you, but it was also because we were trying to solve one problem, and we temporarily created another. So our apologies on that.
Any other questions from PSC? Here for San Diego, we were having our own issues with connectivity and access to the system, and I would like to take this moment to really appreciate all the support provided by the project, working along the San Diego team to mitigate and resolve that issue. With those efforts, I'm glad to report that we have had very to no impact caused by San Diego County. So thank you so much for the assistance provided. At this time, is there any questions of the public? Seeing none, thank you for the update. We can go on to item number 6.
Good morning, everyone. So for our ROI work group, I just re-leveraged the milestones here from a presentation I'd done a month or two ago, just to help future ones. There'll probably be a little more information and more dates in that, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. But I did want to highlight in that we still have a lot of activity to accomplish, but we did get draft letters. Many of you have already had the chance to review them and provided comments back to their state partners already, DHCS and CDSS. They both issued draft letters, they had the attachments, and then collected responses collectively across the counties, all of the stakeholders, our advocate community, and all of those. And certainly CalSAWS had some input in there as well. So they are in the process of reviewing and looking at that. Teresa Hasbrook from DHCS reported at JPA that they received around 300 comments. So it'll take them a little bit to go through that and get them all worked through. You know, this just that by nature, and some will be repetitive, some of them are cosmetic, and then others are, of course, going to be a little bit more meat and potatoes on that. They are anticipating and hoping for September as far as a date for the release of the final letters. That's the little box that's captured there on the top left that they're anticipating in September. So we'll be watching and seeing how that goes. And where we find ourselves right now is a little definitely past and about ready to come out of our first major milestone as far as the letters and what we need to do from that point. So that's why the star there. However, that also highlights that now is a whole different set of work that needs to happen, and it's going to be around for all the counties and the advocate community of getting ready for this, and what is this going to do for what you thought we were going to do a year ago, and then how you address releases of information now to what is that going to look like once we're able to do the functionality within Benefits Cal. So that was in part the letters. You'll notice the lead in for all of those letters were to say, this is for planning purposes. This was so that you guys could have those months that you need to get those operational changes in place and figure out what you need to do and an understanding of what it means to you for the liability, because that was one question. Well, the letters seem to alleviate some of that for many of you. So now it's how am I going to do this and still support all the clients in the CBOs? So that's definitely the highlight on that. And then of course, going into what does that mean for Benefits Cal? What is that going to look like? Of course, there'll be some changes on the back end for CalSAWS as well to help with that integration of the back and forth. And what does it look like for the worker picking it up? What does it look like for the CBO helping the person and trying to get that information entered? You know, what does that look like for the general public when they're trying to do that as well? So we've got a lot of those that'll be coming up. We've done some analysis on the functionality we were going to do, but we also know that some things need to change. So we don't have all of what needs to be changed yet. We're kind of getting an inkling. And I have said it before, we do know that the volume of CBO transactions, the number of CBOs that are out there across the state, you know, steadily increases. And so we know that there's going to be that support that's needed for there. So now how are we going to have that within the system that helps and makes sense for somebody wanting to select and utilize a CBO? You know, is it like, you know, what is that going to look like? How are we going to house all of those accounts and those people? That we don't know yet. That's something we got to work through. But we needed the policy to provide what that might look like, and then trying to help it be as user-friendly as possible. So, because we've got 4 million account holders in Benefits Cal now, we're right at 10,000. Somebody can correct me, you know, of CBO accounts. So, you know, we're talking large numbers. So that's where we're going to be on milestone 3 is some of that for those functionality changes. And of course, that brings in the training mode. You know, counties will have your training mode for how you're going to operationalize it, but how you're going to incorporate what that functionality is as well. And our CBO and advocate partners and sisters are going to be doing the same type of thing. So while we're making progress, we still got a lot of work to do.
Albert, I think we wanted to kind of pause there in between the two, because I know the ROI one is a pretty important one. So pause and open it up for questions before we get to OCR.
Okay, any questions of the PSC on this portion of the update?
Hi, this is Sandra. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the update. This is really helpful because we're keeping an eye on this one just to make sure that we have our staff ready to be trained and we put the process in place properly, as this could impact our just pie and different areas. So we appreciate all the work and planning that's going into looking at this update. Thank you.
Any other update from the PSC on this portion of the presentation? Seeing none, just to be consistent, I'm going to also open it up to the public for this portion of the presentation. Are there any comments of the public?
Hi, this is Jennifer from the Advocates Group.
Excuse me?
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Jen.
Oh, great, thanks.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to express first our gratitude for the project and the State Department for, going through this, like, a little figuring out how to make sure that this policy can reflect the needs of consumers and CBOs and the county staff that need to implement it. We're really excited to be getting closer to this phase of them figuring out, making sure the design will work. I also just wanted to express that I hope that this process has been a learning opportunity, because we, when the policy was originally written, I don't know how much opportunity there was to have the types of collaborative conversations that we've had over the last year. And it seems like it's been a very helpful process to be able to work through together, like where the questions were going to be coming up, so that we could have something that the counties feel ready and comfortable to be able to support. And I hope that in the future, when there are, I know not every single thing might need this process, but when there are policies like this that really hinge on automation, that there can be a more collaborative conversation about what the policy needs to say in order for that automation to be effectively developed. So thank you again to everybody. And I look forward to how this might influence future conversations to make sure that we don't have to spend another year reworking a policy and delaying a really necessary and important feature that affects customer access to benefits. Thank you.
Yeah, Jen, no, we appreciate that comment. I think the collaboration has been important. We agree, right, that there needs to be a holistic view when these policies are developed and how it's going to impact the county's workload, and then also how can we more effectively automate these policies. So we thank you to the advocacy group on your input on this. It's been pretty important.
Any other comment of the public? Seeing none and hearing none, since we did break out the presentation into two, public comment and PSC comment on this item will now be closed. Now on to the new item.
This is
Chris.
Chris, yeah.
Toby.
Let me turn off my mute button. Good morning, everyone. So on the same vein, within Benefits Cal, all the documents that are submitted, and on the CalSA side, we enabled OCR, which is essentially the optical character recognition. I'm sorry, I got a stumbled start here. Okay. So the brainware solution is the OCR, the way the imaging solution does OCR. It was enabled for all 58 counties on June 10th. So what that means is all documents submitted on the Benefits Cal side are now looked at by the imaging system to see if it can further classify the documents. Since it went live We've looked at 2 million documents or images, and of those 2 million images, about 50% have been further classified. And the great news there is that's even the items that were labeled in that generic other category. We were able to further classify them to basically find out what they were. So which would then minimize the work that the workers in the counties would have to do to process the documents. With that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you. Any questions of the PSC? Seeing none, hearing none. Any questions of the public?
Hi, this is Jennifer. So for the ones that the documents that came in through the other category is it the same measure that 50% of those were able to be recategorized into the correct category?
Yeah, the percentage is roughly 50%, just under 50% across all categories.
Okay, and if something came in under like income, but the system reads it as something else, does it recategorize it or does it leave it as what the customer uploaded it as?
So what it does is if it has the confidence threshold to update that document, it will change it to whatever the CalSA's corresponding document type is.
Okay. Okay, cool.
And
so there's a confidence threshold that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful to know. Thank you.
Are there any other?
Just one more question. Sorry, I thought of it as I was unmuting myself. For the stuff that doesn't get categorized, I'm assuming that goes to the same process of the exceptions folder, where then the worker has to go in and sort those manually.
Actually, what happens is it defaults to the document type that the customer chose.
Okay.
So when a customer submits a document, they have a list of document types they can choose. Sometimes they choose the correct one. Other times they just put everything into other. And then what happens is this new feature now is taking a look at that closer, and it's able to pick out about 50% of those documents and properly classify them. Everything else that it doesn't have that threshold met, it just reverts to whatever the customer chose.
Albert?
So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that when customers upload it to the other or like the wrong category, it's not because they're choosing it, it's because their choices are very limited. And I know this is a frustration for workers sometimes, so I wanted to make sure that this is a system issue. It's not a customer doing it wrong.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the public? Before we move on, just to point of order, moving forward, we're going to let the questions from PSC and from the public to be expressed fully before we respond. This is just to ensure, one, that we keep to our times, and also to ensure that all participants get the same opportunity and we don't engage in a back and forth dialogue that may or may not be offered to all who are asking questions. So from this point on, all statements please to be completed to the full question before the project engages in a response. Thank you. Next item.
All right, Lisa?
Yes. Hello again. So let's talk about Council's releases. So I'll start off with the hot off the press item. The headline news is we have postponed the baseline release 2407 from this Sunday to Sunday the 28th, so 1 week. So hopefully you saw the executive communication that went out along with all the subsequent communications to adjust whether it be release notes or downtime broadcasts, training updates, because we will also be delaying the code deployed to the training environment. So we've sent out multiple communications at this point, alerting counties and staff to this change. So let me talk about why we have done this. So, often I speak about our releases, where are we at? And I tend to focus on, those testing phases that are very functionally driven in terms of, our system test, our quality assurance test, county validation activities. We also have other test phases that we consistently run, including performance tests. We want to make sure that before we deploy new code to production, that it is performant and in alignment with our service levels, as well as we run regression testing. We have both automated and manual regression testing that we run consistently across our releases. We have about 1,200 automated scripts that run every week. So where we were Tuesday morning is that we had uncovered 2 open items as it related to our automated regression testing and performance testing, which is good. The whole purpose of doing this testing and doing these multiple layers of tests is to catch things before we present them to you and your staff. So the first item that was uncovered is related to something that is specific in our 24/7 code base. So that base is built off of, we have the production code, which is fine. As you know, since we're our May release, we do priority releases. Each of those gets fed into our 24/7 code stream. We found that we had a couple of releases back at the end of May that were not in that code stream. So I'll give you a simple example. So we had done a priority release where we had a large number of correspondence changes that went in, as well as we fixed some production defects. So we had a defect that was impacting a status display on the new EBT detail page. So we fixed that, and it got pushed to production. The workers now see the right status. However, that change did not make it into 24/07. So if we proceeded and rolled out 24/07 this Sunday, you would see that status issue again. And that's just a simple example. We would have, we don't want to go backwards. We want to continue to go forward and make sure all those changes are incorporated. So because of that item, we wanted to take a step back and make sure we confirm that changes are in 24/07 and go through additional testing before we deploy. So that testing will include rerunning all that automated scripts, doing manual testing, doing some ad hoc testing to confirm that we have included all these items in the release. We have, confidence in that release that it'll be stable when we deploy it. A second item that we had that we're working through related to performance. So we do our performance to make sure that the screen to screen, as you're navigating through the application, that's meeting service levels. We do what we called an endurance test. It's like running a marathon. And so we run this 8-hour test and at peak volume. So, imagine usually we see, highest number of users as the morning progresses. We get everyone logged in. We see a drop off at lunchtime. So we take that peak load and we run it for 8 hours and run all the various transactions. And what we're looking for is making sure that there's no sort of memory leaks or slowdown over time. We did see some slight degradation in our 8th hour of the endurance test. So we're looking into that a little bit further. To make sure either it's new code. We know the infrastructure is slightly different in our performance environment, but we need to do a little bit more analysis there to confirm that there are going to be no negative impacts as we move forward and schedule this release. So that's the quick background. Again, out of the abundance of caution, we want to make sure that we review these items. And again, it's better to catch it now versus have your workers frustrated and calling in tickets. So that is why we held off and are doing some additional testing. The other item I wanted to talk about is, we also looked at the new changes that are coming in 24/07. to determine whether or not there are any key dependencies on other systems, or if we have any time-sensitive changes that need to go in. So out of the 70-odd changes that we had going in system change requests, we have 4 that we need to actually deploy on next Thursday. So 3 of those 4 are related to functionality and integration between CalSource and Benefits Cal. There's some enhancements there that we're putting in, and the Benefits Cal code will go in next Thursday. So we too will deploy those changes next Thursday, so that integration is live. Obviously needs to be there at the same time. And then we do have a smaller item that needs to go in, because you may have heard me last week or last month talk about, we have a very important COLA vote running next Saturday for foster care Kin Gap AAP. That's our annual California Necessities Index increase that we run every year. We have this year with foster care, with a subset of the rates, the FFAs, there is a decrease, so we want to make sure that we actually get that run before counties' main payroll is run. 55 of the counties will run main payroll on the 1st, so we are looking to run that COLA beforehand. I know because a question came up yesterday, with all of our COLAs, one of the key documentation we provide out to the committee and counties is a memorandum which details out kind of, here's the scope of that COLA process. Here are the, the lists that will be produced for the counties to review. We'll talk about when we run it, how we run it, etc. So that document did go out and draft yesterday to the counties, and we will be continuing to work through that item to run it next Saturday in production. I have 2 other updates, and I'll keep talking, and then we'll open it up for questions. In terms of priority items, so one is that COLA that we do need to run, and 2 other items that come up. One is on the slide here. In August, we're making some changes related to the CHTP program. This is good news. Some of the documents that get sent out of the system, we need to stop sending those. There was a policy change effective earlier this month where that program is moving over to managed care. And so there are things that the counties no longer need to collect or send out. So we'll be making those changes. We have about 3 system change requests that we're implementing. This is the first of 2 phases for this change. We are working on a CIT that will complement the needle and ACWDL that DHCS has administered. So that is targeted to come out to you all on the 1st of August, just for awareness so counties understand what changes are coming and how it may impact your staff. And in this case, we're looking to take some workload away. So hopefully that's good. And then the third priority item that I wanted to cover is we know we had a lot of wildfires already. Many people were evacuated in various counties, power outages. So there is a planned mass replacement once we get approval from the state on that. I haven't seen that approval yet, but we have about 8 counties over 23 zip codes where CalFresh households have been impacted. So we will work to issue those mass replacements as soon as possible once we get that approval. So I just wanted to alert everyone to that, and we'll be standing ready to send them out as we continue to make through the summer. I did have one more slide. It was about 2407. I think given the delay, we can skip this one for now. We have pushed out green light to next Thursday. So more to come as we head through this next week on that release. Thanks you all.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the PSC? Sandra?
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much for doing all that testing and making sure that the system is running accurately. So we appreciate having to push back this update, although we were waiting for it, but it's good to know that, you know, you're doing the testing, validating, and all that is working as according to the process. So we appreciate that and look forward to an update when it'll be released. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Any other questions of the PSC? Thank you. Any questions or comments of the public? Oh, sorry, Cindy?
No, sorry, that was my fault, Albert. I went to raise my hand late. So thank you. I appreciate the updates, and just wondering if there will be any kind of update about the release that's going in. I know, Lisa, you kind of mentioned it. You weren't going to go over that. So just wondering, is there going to be a high level, are you going to go over that at all in any kind of a high level fashion as far as just the fact that it's being delayed?
So Cindy, you should have received communication that was very granular and detailed yesterday.
Yeah.
But if there's any follow-up that's needed, you know, we're happy to talk to you offline on those impacts, or if it wasn't clear. And
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, I did receive that. I didn't know if it was going to be mentioned here, since I know that is a change, but yes, I did receive it, and there's no questions about it.
Okay, yeah. So there's 4 items that are being pushed out, released on Thursday, and those were kind of pulled out of the release because they are time sensitive. And so that's what Lisa was going over. The rest of it will be released on Sunday, the 28th.
Any other questions of the PSC? Any questions or comments of the public? Seeing none, hearing none, thank you. We can move on to item number 8.
All right, thank you, Dr. Benuelos. We're going to go through our normal reports update. It is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We try to make it a little bit shorter for you guys. This first slide here is something the JPA asked for. Like, can you just give us a focus on what you've been changing, what you've been doing since the last JPA? Unfortunately, it was only 3 weeks since the last JPA. And it was right at the end of our bi-monthly release cycle that we just were talking about. So there's not a lot of priority releases in that period. We still put a majority of our focus towards all the fiscal reports, which I'll be doing a little bit of a more detail in the next slide. But you can see we continue to make progress. Even in that 3 weeks, we made updates to close to 10 different reports in those 3 weeks, including a significant change to the CA 812. This is a state report based on CalWORKs collections. It's probably one of the 2 most complex state reports that we have. The other one being the same thing for CalFresh, called the FNS 209. That one's a bear as well. So we are bringing that one back up to date, up to policy. And at the bottom there, I did include our next group of functional design documents are coming out at the end of this month. This is where we're going through and writing in detail what each report does. This again was one of our findings of all the research we did over the fall and winter and into the spring, and working with the counties on what is needed. And the most resounding answer we got back is, I'd really like to know the exact logic and detail behind these reports in the system. And so we have a technical side going and a functional side going. This is the functional side that explains it more in a narrative or literal literature format than technical. But we get a lot of great feedback on that, and it's been going quite well. We provided a half dozen last month. We're providing another half dozen this month. We're going to continue to roll that cycle forward. The consortium has allocated hours out of our maintenance to be able to do that in a rolling fashion. So let's talk about fiscal reports a little bit. So at the last general membership, if we go forward one slide, it was brought up that there are significant amount of issues and concerns around fiscal reporting. So we did some dives where I know the RRMs are still reaching out, trying to gather some facts and issues here and there. But I went and I did basic research. I said, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning of May. Let's see what's been going on since then through the end of this month. And so focusing on the left, I broke down the defects and where we're seeing some significant volumes. A lot of it was focused around the DFA 256. The Cowan County's brought in some really good details there that we found some stuff that had probably been lingering for quite some time. We were able to fix that. At the same time, we're also replacing the DFA 256 with the CF 256, which sounds like I'm just flipping some letters, but it's a lot more than that. We actually restructured the form and did some other logic changes in there. So it was actually a good time to introduce some of that stuff. We also have some smaller things where certain issuance types aren't showing up here and there on the reports. And you can see each of these have dates where we're going to fix them. For the ones where the dates are later in July, that may shift a bit or so based on what we just talked about with 2407. So I was trying to get them in right after 2407 went live, so they may shift by a week or two. You can also see towards the bottom, we also fixed 20 total fiscal defects. At the end of 7/31, I will only have 2 currently known fiscal defects remaining. And I do say currently known because that number tends to fluctuate and will probably be different by the end of the sentence. Now, on the positive note, those 2 are scheduled for the next day. Now, again, that might shift a little bit, but I would say probably about 3 weeks, we'll have no known defects unless something else comes in on fiscal reports. Now, with the nature of what we said, doesn't necessarily mean what the counties are facing are also defects. It could be an enhancement of some sort that they need to follow their reconciliation process or something they're not getting that they used to get. So I went through all the open enhancements too and where we've been going on those. The biggest thing I can say that we saw that really caused some consternation with the counties was this change in how we did skim scan placements. There was a policy that came out that altered the EBT benefit type that went in there. So we put those system changes in and the report seemed great. We almost immediately got feedback that this isn't working, which kind of going along with our processes for testing. The point of the report is actually to figure out what's going on. If something doesn't reconcile, why doesn't it reconcile? So it served its purpose in that. And then what we found is if you go to the first bullet on the next stream, or on the next column, it was an upstream issue. The actual functionality that issues these things was putting the wrong type on there. So it looked like, hey, we put the reports out there, the reports are broken. No, the reports actually exposed that there was something wrong upstream. So the reports were right. We had to push upstream to our fiscal group and say, hey, let's fix this EBT benefit type. So in an interesting way, it worked in the way we wanted, but it caused a lot of confusion because it happened side by side with each other. It was unclear for a little while. Was it a report issue or system issue? Again, we talked about the 812 already on the enhancements. The last bullet there under enhancements is consolidation of some of our fiscal reports. I would say this was probably the second biggest recommendation or ask we got from most of the counties, particularly the Cowan counties, when we did all our research over the winter, fall, spring, put that in the wrong order, was to start consolidating reports. So what we're going to see with following the 2407 release is our first iteration of starting to consolidate those reports. So if you've talked to your fiscal staff, and hey, Clarissa, your fiscal staff was complaining like, why do I have to open up 95 to 110 reports to produce my automated assistance claim? But then I just upload to Secrets anyway. That's now starting to push back down into a smaller number of reports. It's not 1. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to 1, but we got to a handful. So that's good that we're going to start seeing that feedback come out. We also have another 6 enhancements that we've deployed, and this is going to leave us with what is remaining prioritized by the committee, of which only 2 left on that list. Now, unfortunately, they are scheduled for 2505 based on the priorities from that committee. But if they choose to reprioritize, we could shift those around. A lot of the other things in that list seem to be probably rightly prioritized in front of those. So I would leave that up to the counties and the regional committee members if they want to shift that priority. As far as upstream issues, I already talked about the EBT replacement and how the report did its job. But I did want to bring up that we had about 10 instances where files were received late by the counties or sent late by the counties to the project. So what that happens is generally they go, hey, all my reports are blank, or only I have a portion of my reports, and we get a lot of tickets. we go to our operations team and say, hey, this looks like the data's not there. And so what ends up being a report is blank issue ends up being we never got the file. So our operations team works with the county. Generally, it's resolved that day almost every single time, or the file's already been sent by the county. We just now got to reprocess it manually. That did cause 46 different reports to have to be rerun in that 90-day window. So we're averaging just about every other day having to rerun a report based on a late file. Now, that sounds a little bit scary, like paper-based issues. I looked through the counties. There is not it's not Humboldt, right? It's not Contra Costa, right? It's not the same counties every single day. When you have 58 counties, you're going to have some level of this, right? A little bit there, a little bit there. There were no recurring situations or anything like that. I think this is just, no suspects, no escalations, anything like that. It's just, this is business when you have 58 different counties. So with that, Dr. Benuelos?
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the PSC members?
I just have a comment again. Just want to thank the team for working through the reports. I know it's been a painful process for some of the counties. So thank you for continuing to work through the reports. We are definitely seeing some progress. I'm hearing less and less of report issues as we move forward. So just want to say that.
I really appreciate that. We had an interesting conversation, Nicole and I, at the status meeting. As we get through this, I think what we're going to find is when we hit that next phase is probably going to be differences in opinions on how state reports should work. And what we're going to do is what we should do. We put that to the policymakers. What do you want this to be? So I think that's probably going to be our next phase is we've kind of filtered through all the big boulders. Let's focus on the policy items and see where those go. So it's good to hear that, a lot of the counties are starting to report my reconciliations getting easier and better. We're not done. But it's starting to get better. We're seeing progress. And I think we're going to move into that phase 7 or 8 or wherever we are at this point on clarifying policy with the state as we go forward.
Any other questions of PSC members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Thank you for that update. Item number 9, please.
All right, Sarah, are you on?
Sorry, this is Regina. Hi, everyone.
Oh, Regina,
Hopefully
sorry.
you can hear me okay. I'll be providing a quick update on our Fresno Gen AI project. So for those who were not aware, we've been working on a Fresno Gen AI call summary assist tool. This is a feature that was deployed. We're kind of in the middle of deploying it in 3 phases. We had our initial go live on June 27th for our phase 1. That was all of the CalWorks queues. And on this slide, I'll share some initial data points from that. We actually had our phase 2 go live last week on Friday, which was enabling this tool for all CalFresh, Medi-Cal, and GR queues. And our phase 3 go live, which will be our final release, is this evening for all remaining queues at Fresno. So what this tool is, it summarizes automatically using generative AI all of the calls in and outbound that are taken with Fresno. And basically that allows the workers to save time and not have to take all of the notes that they would normally take during those calls and kind of rather just take whatever supplemental notes they would have, review and edit and make any changes to the automatically generated call summaries. So we've been very excited about this work and initially have had some great data points so far. So I'll share, this is just from the first 2 days of our phase 1 go live, since these slides I think were from JPA. But in the first 2 days, we had over 1,000 summaries generated. And one metric we were really, paying very close attention to, because there's been some, I think when folks hear about generative AI, a lot of times you worry about how computationally intensive it is, and it can take a lot of time. So performance was a big concern for us, but we were actually seeing that it's operating really well under strain in production. So on average, we've seen, and this number has stayed about the same, about 8 seconds for those summaries to be generated. And that's for calls ranging anywhere from a couple minutes to like 40 minutes or an hour. So We're loving that metric there, continuing to see these summaries generated around 7-8 second range. Some eligibility worker feedback from the first couple of days has been that it's great in organizing the flow of the phone call. So of course, when we have this summary generated automatically, we get to decide how that structure looks like and what terminology to use. So the language is more consistent, the flow is more consistent, things like that. So we're, it sounds like that's been consistent with what we're hearing with the feedback as well. And then we have seen some suggestions, I think, specifically from a lot of the eligibility workers who've been there for a long time. They have their, a little bit more set in their ways and have specific, things that they would do when they take the call notes. But some folks were noting that for some of the shorter calls, that the summaries are a little bit more repetitive, maybe saying the same thing once or twice. And for longer calls that, sometimes there was some detail lacking there that we're, investigating and working with Fresno to, make some adjustments to our generative AI prompt to, fix some of these things. And then one thing we were seeing that there were sometimes numbers or names or addresses that were incorrectly captured. So for numbers, for example, if you say, my address is 310 Broadway Street, it might say 3:10 instead of 310. So we're again working on some of those fixes. Names is a similar thing. It's kind of hard when you have Aaron, that could be AARON versus ERIN. So some of those things are, typically what we're seeing. They're not always captured 100% correctly, but through the technology, this is why we use this as an assist tool that the eligibility workers have a chance to review all of these things and make those edits before saving to the system. So again, here on the right side, we have our key performance metrics from the first couple of days. We noted in those first couple of days that the inbound calls, we were seeing a reduction in post-call wrap time and average handle time by about 12-13%. And for outbound calls, that percentage was a little bit higher. And actually, in speaking to Fresno just on Tuesday this week, it sounded like they had some specific activities that were going on right before we went go live that made the outbound call post wrap time and average handle time longer. So this data is comparing the go live, post go live period with March through May of this year. So they were saying in that March through May period, they had some activities that were making those outbound calls take a little bit longer. So that's why we're seeing, we think that this reduction is higher for outbound calls as opposed to inbound calls, but we're continuing to monitor and also take a look at the data from this time last year as opposed to this time this year to maybe have a different point of comparison. So some good discussion with Fresno on these metrics. We're continuing to monitor from phase 2 and phase 3. From phase 1 so far, I'll share just some more recent data that's not capturing more of July here. We've seen almost, if not over by this point, 5,000 summaries generated. So a lot of call volume on our phase 1 CalWorks queues. And for phase 2, which is our CalFresh, Medi-Cal, and GR, just on the first day that we saw those in production, which was Monday, we saw 702 summaries generated. So a lot of additional volume, and the performance is looking great there. We had some additional focus groups this week and continue to receive positive feedback from the eligibility workers, and seems like things are working really well. We haven't had any new defects in phase 2 that we didn't already see in phase 1. So we've been working on fixing those items. And as I mentioned, our phase 3 go live is tonight. So that will be it for Fresno in terms of our English pilot here. And then the team is starting to work on and solution out and think about what it looks like to expand this technology to additional languages, since we know that is a key feature. And also working with Fresno to compare, trying to see what types of edits are being made to the generated summaries so that we just have a sense of, additional potential enhancements that might need to be made to improve this technology. So I'll stop there and take any questions if there are any. Thanks.
Yeah, and before we get to questions, a huge kudos to Fresno for being the guinea pig on this and availing yourself to be the first kind of out the gate to do this. I know it's been a lift, and the team has been pulling on you, and feedback is it's worth it. But we don't want to, minimize the amount of effort that is taken on Fresno's team to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely.
So yes, I too want to echo Julia, and thank you Fresno for being the pioneers on this effort. Looking forward, the one thing that I know San Diego and I'm sure other counties, no, it's a summary and we have to go in and fill in, some missing or pertinent information. I think the one thing that I would be interested in knowing here as you progress is those civil rights components. How are we capturing, the language, was an interpreter provided, things that we need to comply for our ME evaluations as it relates to civil rights. I think that is a piece that would be very interesting for many of the counties that would be considering this in the future. And again, that's just my feedback for the team. And I will open it up for any questions of the PSC.
Question. So I think everybody's really excited about Gen AI, especially in the call centers. Are we going to continue to receive updates and summaries on some of the performance as this further develops?
Yeah, even now what we're doing is collecting the additional metrics that are needed before we consider scaling, right? So things like Regina mentioning the edits, like how much we work. We don't want to implement a solution and it create a lot of work for the, for the call center staff as well. So yeah, absolutely. This will be a kind of an ongoing agenda item as it progresses.
And I'm wondering if those metrics, rather than being represented as a percentage, could be represented as time.
We would have to coordinate with Fresno because there's implications on how much information we could actually share out on there, right? So,
thank you.
All right.
I did have a quick question. I think this is really exciting. Have you had any customer feedback?
They wouldn't know because this is not facing the public, right? So this doesn't interface with the public. So just to make that clear, they're having the call. A transcript was being created anyway from those calls. That is fed into Gen AI. It's not listening in on the call, so the public isn't interfacing with it, and there's really no, there's no impact to them, so they wouldn't know.
That's right. I will say though, we did get one comment passed on to us from the Fresno team that someone did say on a call, one of the customers that, oh wow, the wait time was so short today or something like that. So love to hear that. Hope to see more of those, pieces of feedback as we see.
That's great feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so,
feedback.
That was lovely to hear. All right, thank you. Well, I think that if there's no other questions or comments, I can pass it on.
No.
Albert, we have to open. We have to still
Questions of the public.
Hi, this is Jennifer. I have one question. Are the workers still able to take notes on their own if they want to? I'm curious just for like neurodivergent, neurospicy people who it helps them to track what's happening. So I'm wondering if they have the option to do that while they're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually part of the design. We created a new separate field that allows for the eligibility workers to take their own notes during the call if they need to, in addition to what the Gen AI summary is creating. So yes.
Thank you. Any other questions of the public? Seeing none and hearing none, thank you for that presentation and information. Item number 10, please.
Lisa?
All right.
Can't get enough.
Yeah, I got short straw today, didn't I? You're gonna see how short in a minute. All right, so Emily, not as cool as some AI, but a necessary pillar of project management, our risk management, issue management processes. You'll see there we have been trending down over time. In this section, we do cover our kind of medium priority risks that we have right now. And if we go to the next slide, you see that they reflect some of the topics we've already presented on today, some of the pain points you experience in the counties, as well as some very important operational items that we just track on a month-to-month basis. So I do have some friends helping, thankfully, but I am going to play the role of Holly first up this morning. So we have this budget, risk that we've tracked it for about 20 years, if anyone's noting, around project funding. Very important that we have that funding in place and approved in order to execute all the system and project activities we need to do on a day-to-day basis. Holly is very, very diligent in this area. One of the highlights she wanted to talk about today is around what we call our premise funding process. So in addition to the baseline budget, every year we work with our state partners on various items and new changes that they want. Several of those come with additional funding, what we call premise funding. You've heard Lynn talk before about ROI. We have the very large integration effort we're doing with CARES and CWS, and that is additional funding. That is a process that we monitor very closely. And coming out of the May revise this year, we actually, I had the benefit of tagging along with Holly, and we met with our state partners on this, DHCS, CDSS, and OTSI. Everyone involved before it even gets to Department of Finance. And it was an opportunity to really reflect and look at the end-to-end process and how we can streamline it. And so there was some great discussion. It was like one of those things, you're saying X, I'm saying Y. Like I'd say aluminum. No, you guys say aluminum, I'd say aluminium. We're saying the same thing, but in a different way. And it really helped to level set. And we found opportunities to streamline this process and make sure that as the documents flow all the way through to CDSS and Department of Finance, we have consistency and easy ability to trace those premise items. So we're now testing some of these changes, because even though the sun is shining and it's really hot outside, the fall process has begun. So we're working through that process in order to get any additional changes and increments in for the government's budget. So very exciting times there if you like budgeting. Second risk. Okay, I'm putting my Peggy hat on today. So project communications, again, super important. Just a fundamental principle of having the ability to communicate to you all in the counties what's going on, what the changes are, doing that consistently and timely. So there have been several initiatives in this area. Earlier this month, we had the 4th M&E Roadshow that was focused on release readiness as well as on county validation. Those sessions were well attended. I think we had 3 of them last week. We are tinkering with the possibility of a 5th M&E Roadshow. It hasn't been solidified yet, but it would focus around kind of those broadcast notifications that go out, as well as kind of the outage communication. So we know that there were differences between the legacy systems, how that occurred. Going through kind of where we're at with councils today and how that communication goes out. Again, that's TBD, but that's something that folks are looking at potentially scheduling. They're also looking at doing some public sessions coming up. We know we continue to hear some things around ICTs and processing those, task management, etc. So more to come in this space. We also, I think I reported a couple of months ago, and Amy's in the room here. Amy helped facilitate a number of discovery sessions around release readiness with Jen Hobbs, our RM sponsor there. So we have collated all that feedback and come up with some recommendations. We're starting to execute through those recommendations. Some of them were quite simple, like when we have a webcast and there are 20 items, can we do all the CalFresh first and then the Metacast, so folks can drop off and they're hearing, from a program perspective, what's most impactful for them, and they don't have to sit through the whole 2.5 hours if they don't want to. Other items we're working on, not only what we send when we send it, is to whom do we send it. So I believe there's a CRFI coming to the counties to talk about distribution groups, so counties that have that flexibility to add people in and out of groups, so that the right people in the county are getting these messages timely. And with that, I am now going to hand off to Lynn, who's going to cover the next 2 risks.
I'm going to ask if you're wearing me too. All right. So for the perceived gap function to get CalFresh, again, we've been reporting out on this for well over a year. We are actually making some progress moving forward on getting all these components outlined and working with CDSS and some with Code for America to get all those pieces worked out. So we've come very close on that. we've had conversations with the state on prioritizing and figuring out the next series of changes that we'll be implementing that will help complement all of that to get to that point. We do know too that, and working through the funding streams on it and working through that, we've got an understanding of what we need to do to put it into Benefits Cal, and then of course the cascading effect of what it will mean for the Cal SAWS changes as well. So we're definitely moving that way and then worked out the path now. So we do know, and we'll be working on, we've had several asks, rightfully so, now where is it and what is it that's actually occurring and happening, and what does this mean? You know, because the Get Cal Fresh has been out there for a very long time, due to sunset next year. Been building it out and adding pieces and keep adding parts of it to Benefits Cal. So it's easy to have lost track of what's the difference between them and what's going on, and how are you guys going to be doing that? So we will be working on it. We'll have some more materials and more information probably in the next month or so that I can go over a little more in detail. And we do know that JPA is also following and asking some similar types of things. So we'll start with the high level for JPA, and then we can look at some of what that means here. And I know counties, you've had lots of questions to your RMs going, okay, I just need a little more insight. So hearing that, and we'll be working on that in relation to this. And the next one, the ROI, that one I did write already. I don't know that there's anything necessarily. We are tracking to this. At some point, I'll get to say it turns green, and we will find something else to monitor. All right. Okay, I turn that back over.
Yeah, 296, 297 is showing up on reporting.
So 296 and 297 are two sides of what I perceive as the same coin, one being state fiscal reports, the other side being kind of everything else, management and ad hoc. On the 296 front, we continue to have our reoccurring meetings that we established through the last year or so to support the counties and have continuous dialogue, the biggest one being our every other week meeting on Thursdays. We also had a fiscal or the state reports and fiscal committee meeting in June. So we've been, some of the feedback was, let's get that thing up and running again, make sure the priorities are right, we're doing the right things. So that's up and having its regular cadence of meetings. We had a targeted report session, or what I call deep dive, onto the 237 for foster care. That's your child welfare kind of caseload movement statistical report. We also introduced, I mentioned the CF 256, the upcoming functional design documents. We also sent out, there was a CIT 88-24 and 2 sessions held by Jarek and the implementation team, where they went through the skipped issuance report. And, you know, if you've been in Cal SAWS for more than a day, you know what that report is. It's critical for your workers to work every morning. But they went through, and between their 2 calls, they had about 700 or 800 people attend. And they actually went through, instead of focusing on the report itself, what do I do now that I got the report? So it's kind of coming at it from a different perspective, but that was really well attended. We got a lot of good feedback on that. So kudos to the team there. And I think that a lot of valuable information, particularly to the newer counties, came out, and it was very useful. Rolling to 297. We had another targeted report session. Again, this is the kind of not state and fiscal side. It kind of captures everything else. We had a deep dive session on what's called the Expedited Service CalFresh Management Report. And this did expose a lot of interesting questions like, well, how are you calculating this? How are you calculating that? And then tying that back into system functionality and some differences between the county business processes, like when do you set your file dates, which worker does it, and then what impact would that have on the report. So I think it was a pretty good conversation there. We've already actually, at the time I wrote this, it was targeted upcoming, but now it's actually happened. We've actually also gone over the application processing dashboard. So that's another positive thing that we're starting to go through these pseudo management reports, kind of at least high level processing. Some of the interesting feedback we are starting to get is for some of the counties, they like to group things together differently, right? In the Cal SAWS, we tend to reflect it like you have your Medi-Cal program, your CalFresh program, your this program. Well, some counties are like, well, I want all my reports to show my McFresh caseload. Well, that's not what Cal SAWS does. Like Cal SAWS puts it together based on the programs in the system. If the county works McFresh, or my non-English speaking population versus my English speaking population. So that's driven a lot of good conversation between what the system's going to automatically provide based on the functionality of the system versus if a county needs to go in a different direction, how do they get that support through ad hoc to be able to do that. So some interesting conversations have been driving into these deep dives. And that's kind of the point of a lot of it too, is not only understanding what it's doing, but if I need something similar or different, slightly different, how do I get that information? So good updates on both of those items recently.
Thank you, Sean. Could have kept talking, I would have had a break. RIS 300. So we talked a little bit about this morning in our production metrics. So this is focused on for-drug identity access management. So this item we did flip to an issue when we had those 3 events, the last one being on June 10. So as mentioned this morning, the team had done a deep dive and worked with the vendor on that and done a lot of troubleshooting. We got to a place where we identified some changes. Those changes were tested and then deployed this past weekend. And as I mentioned to date, we have had stability thus far this week and seen some improved response times there. As Clarissa noted and we noted, we are doing hypercare for the next week or so on this one, a couple of weeks through the end of the month to confirm that those changes have taken effect. So, it is an issue right now. Once we get through that, we'll take it back through the process to determine whether this goes back to a risk. If it does, there are still items that we need to action in this space. I know the vendor is working on a new version that we will be looking at going to, once we do the necessary analysis and working with them on what that version provides and how it's going to increase stability and performance in the application across the systems. As well as we are still running in our East region, which is our disaster recovery region. We will be looking to move back to the West. Again, there's a lot of analysis.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
So that is where we're at with risk issue, 300. Keep flipping it back to a risk already, but we're not there yet. And then on 302, this is around our contact center space. There's multiple items we're working on in this area. So the first one around courtesy callback. So the update on that one is we are actually working, designing and deploying a solution right now with LA County through a county purchase, where we're looking at implementing enhancements to this space. The tentative timeline will be September for deployment. Again, that's one of those efforts where we report out on how that is going. We know we have, over 30 contact center counties, so many of you all are looking for enhancements in this area in the future as well. So that's a work item that is in flight. And then e-game reporting. So this is again an area where we are working with a vendor. We've escalated to get an account manager assigned here. As you would have seen earlier this week, there were a couple of issues related to e-game reporting. One was resolved, the other was attempted to be resolved last night. That's the missing agent name. We're still working through that with the vendor. These changes were not intended to go in this week, so there's been some work there to try to get this resolved. And I know the team has been on the phone this morning so that we can get this into a place where you have the reporting you need to, service the contact center. So apologies for that one. The team is actively working on that to get it to resolution. So again, e-game continues to be an area of focus as well in the contact center space. And that, I believe, is the last slide. Back to you, Albert.
Thank you. Any questions of PSC members?
Okay.
Any questions from, any comment or questions from members of the public? Thank you for the update. Next item 11, please.
Thank you, Albert. On our procurement update for the M&O procurement, this is just a recap that an appeal was filed by Accenture. The two parties did provide briefs on July 12th, and we're preparing for the appeal review board hearing on August 30th with a decision on or before September 19th. Next slide. Here's our procurement update for Benefits Cal, and the key dates are we have our evaluation team in place, and they were oriented earlier this week on Tuesday, and are busy reading the RFP to get familiarized and getting ready to do training at the end of August, and in preparation for the RFP being delivered to us July 30th. Actually, their training is earlier than that, and the proposal is due the 30th of July, and we expect to jump right on evaluating it. Any questions? Or Albert, back to you.
Thank you. Any questions from PSC members? Any comment or questions from members of the public? Seeing none, thank you for the update. Now, item 12, our state partners.
We have OTSI.
Hi, this is Patrice from OTSI. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, we just have one quick update. On May 31st, we formally transmitted the infrastructure and M&E contracts to CMS for review and approval. And that's all we have today. Thank you.
Hi, this is Cecilia with CDSS. We don't have any updates today. Thank you.
Teresa or DHCS?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. We do have a couple of updates from DHCS in regards to a couple of policies that I want to make sure folks are aware of. The first policy is in regards to the sunsetting of the current CHDP program, as well as some changes to the flyers that are included in the application and renewal packet. Just letting individuals know that we released both an ACWDL and a MEDL in regards to the sunsetting of these particular programs. The ACWDL, and I'll put it in the chat in just a minute, was 24-09, which was the introduction of the newborn gateway and changes to the children's presumptive eligibility program. We also released a similar MEDL that outlined what was going to be changed around what was included in the packet. That was MEDL 24-14. And like I said, in just a second, I'll put it in the chat. We're working closely with CalSAWS to make those changes within the system. So, please know there'll be a couple phases as we begin to move some of the language that we're using around CHDP and the EPSDT programs into a new process. The other thing I wanted to just point out to folks is we know there was some confusion between CalWORKS and Medi-Cal about medical support enforcement and what should be happening right now while Medi-Cal has a waiver to not do the medical support enforcement. We understand that we've been answering a lot of questions on the Medi-Cal side about this, but that on the CalWORKS side, there was a lot of confusion from some of the county subject matter experts in that space. And so we actually went to the CalSAWS committee meeting for CalWORKS and CalFresh to go over what the policy is on the Medi-Cal perspective, and also issued out a MEDL to really solidify the clarity that the medical support enforcement should be looked at separately for CalWORKS and Medi-Cal, as there are different requirements for each program. And so that went out in MEDL 24-13. Those are the two updates that DHCS has today. Thanks so much.
Any questions of PSC members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we're gonna go into our next item, which is item 13, regional updates. And before we commence by hearing from all the various regions, now that again this is the new fiscal year, and I believe that this is the first fiscal year that we are commencing where all 58 counties are now active in the CalTOS system. And I bring that forth just because I know that in the past, priorities and things of that nature were a little bit different just because of some of us were still transitioning into the system, and and maybe the priorities were to cross that finish line versus what was happening, or needed our attention, and we trusted our sister counties to kind of carry that torch on behalf of everybody who was trying to get to the finish line. Here in San Diego, this month we celebrated our 1-year anniversary of being in CalSAWS with multiple activities and things of that nature just to celebrate that big milestone. And as we move forward, I would ask that during this agenda item piece, that we now that we are one and all of us are in the same system, when we are presenting things here, that we can highlight things that are happening within the system, maybe some things that we would like to advocate for or need more clarity. It is very good to identify that, that we're starting a class or two, but I'm just going to be honest, sometimes that's not a very little impact to the rest of us. I would really like to know, and I think this body would like to know, what are the things that we should be prioritizing or advocating for as now we are one within the system. So in that vein, I will start with updates for Region 5. And I would like to report that here in San Diego, working with our CBOs, we have activated more functionality within Benefits Cal. We have introduced the live chats and the Call Me feature. Our capacity, and we were able to identify the available resource to man these new features. We've been live for 6 weeks using these features within Benefits Cal. And I would like to report that the live chat, how we use it is that we just do general information. We do not go into case questions just because we are unable to identify the individual, and it was our choice to prevent a breach, that anytime those live chats go into case specific, we do ask the customer to give us a call, or we will outbound call them once they provide, so that we can go and identify the individuals. But again, in 6 weeks time, we have already, and this was as of last week, we've handled 4,200 live chats. And this is an agent, it's not a bot. They are reaching an agent and they're asking their questions. And again, these are very generic. How can I apply? Where can I submit? Things of that nature. So again, 4,200 chats have been already addressed as of last week. And also the Call Me feature. This is where somebody can go into Benefits Cal and request a callback. Both of these features were activated at the same time. In the 6 weeks time, we have already addressed 1,047 Call Me. And again, this is where the customer is requesting an outbound call and our success rate is we are able to reach them back within 1 minute of their request. Again, this is because we have prioritized and we also have the bandwidth. I understand that this may or may not be feasible depending on staffing, but I do want to just highlight those items that we are here testing in San Diego, and these are our Region 5 updates. Region 3.
I'm Ryan Bishop, representing Region 3. This is my first official meeting. Thank you for having me. So I'm still getting really to learn more about my region, and I do have some updates for you today. I'm also starting to learn more about my region's priorities. So more to come on priorities. I appreciate Albert's prompt for us to dive in more into that. So I do know a top priority for our region right now is ICTs and enhancing that process and making that more seamless. And also we have staffing. Staffing is still a top priority for our region. We're still struggling. There is some good news report. Butte, Calusa, Humboldt, Mendocino, Shasta, Tehama, and Trinity all did report starting new classes or having new eligibility hires, which we love to hear about. But a big focus for these counties right now is still recruitment retention efforts and of course improving efficiency. Some counties did lose positions. We're all feeling a little bit of budget crunch these days. So Shasta did report losing 17 positions. Glenn County did report losing some positions, but they did recoup them with the budget revise. Shasta County did shut down the regional office downtown, and those staff have been absorbed into other buildings. We also have Lake Shasta and Siskiyou recently went through some CalFresh MEs, management evaluations, and Humboldt Delmar and soon Shasta will be doing EVES audits. We're also seeing some new leadership in our region. So Lake does have a new director. Plumas has a current acting director as they're actively recruiting, is my understanding. Trinity has a new deputy director and a new social service director. But to talk a little bit about efficiency and enhancements and things we're doing to become more efficient. Tehama, I believe, is going live Monday with their lobby kiosk, and Siskiyou, I think they're going to set a date next Wednesday to go live. So that's exciting. And we are definitely seeing an uptick in the region for interest in Gainwell's return mail services. So that's exciting for everybody too. Specifically last in Shasta, we're looking into that. I did want to just also give Trinity a quick shout out. They have what is it called? Sorry. Follow the Wheels. It's an outreach effort, and I believe there's going to be an article in the CalSAWS Buzz about it. So I just wanted folks to check that out, get the opportunity. Lots of great outreach they're doing in a very rural county. So good stuff. I think that's it for Region 3.
We'll invite you back.
Already a pro. He's already a pro.
Yeah, right.
Region 6.
Good morning, everyone. This is Irene Wizar for DPSS, LA County. So as you know, we continue to focus our efforts on our processing, but also on ensuring that our customers are receiving the services they need through our access point. With that, one of the areas we've been trying to look at and focus is our customer service levels. So we've been working with our labor partners, our advocate partners, and a customer experience survey was developed. We were able to generate these cards. So anyone that came through our lobby, they're able to let us know, did we meet their needs? What was their overall satisfaction of the office itself? And just of the service that was received. It also captures, how long was their wait time. So with that, we also developed a poster that went into all the offices and these cards. So with the services that we provide over the telephone, There was also surveys at the end of the call where they were asked to, stay on the phone and just respond to a couple of questions. So as we're beginning to collect that data now, we're hoping to, zoom in on some areas that, we could address, improve. This is also in combination, as I have reported on in one of the previous meetings, where, again, I want to thank Orange County because we went out there to look at their lobby operation. So we're hoping that all this would help us to just also look at our lobby redesign. So how we could improve the service overall and our customer service levels, and reinforce some training with our staff, in-person contact, and also over the phone.
Thank you. Any other updates from Region 6?
Hi, this is Olga Vicuña from DCFS LA County. I just have some brief updates. We are currently hosting in-person training sessions to assist our EWs with the imaging process. We intend to go live 100% with our staff August 1st. We had some hurdles with the imaging with the union, and we were able to resolve it and submit our business process. And so it was green lighted. So now August 1st is our target date. And then we also initiated, we are losing some staff to retirement, and one's transferring to policy. So we will have an exam listed for an HSA1. We will have 2 positions open. And then we also currently onboarded 4 new supervisors to help strengthen our team here at Revenue Division. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from Region 6? Region 2.
Good morning. This is Eduardo for Region 2. Just to kind of give our look and discussing with our region kind of top priorities. I think reporting is one of the major ones to kind of take a look at. So appreciate updates from Sean earlier today to kind of give the updates, know where we're going. So I think that's a lot helpful, especially our fiscal teams, especially are looking forward to those. System stability. We've seen vast improvements. I can speak on behalf of Sacramento County. It was a great having some of the CalSOS teams come out a few months ago, give us some TA with that to make sure it wasn't our only internal system connectivity issues, but to kind of work through those processes, and we've seen a lot of improvements through that. So really appreciate that. Call wait times, everything again continue to decline. And also for our region, another top priority, obviously functionality. ICTs, as Ryan mentioned earlier, is one that was brought up in our region. Looking forward to continuing that, and also duplicate person. And understand there's a functionality work that's going on with that as well, working on that. So really appreciate all the support receiving from our region. And that is really my updates for Region 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Region 1.
Good morning, Clarissa Simon. I have a new partner with Well, my first time. Yes, I'll take this one for now. You take the next one. I'm taking notes. We did get the notice that we were switching the updates. So thank you to our RMs for facilitating the collecting of the updates on priorities for the region. We do have 3 priorities. ICTs, we're continuing to watch multiple EICT system changes due to impact to workload and of course business processes. Reports, we're continuing to track reports. Yes, we still love Sean. We're tracking the work being done pertaining to state and fiscal reporting, as well as access to e-game data. It's becoming more and more pertinent to us as well. And then our third priority is Fresno's Gen AI metrics and any success from that process. So we're continuing to watch. That's it for Region 1.
Thank you. And last but not least, Region 4.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Cindy. It's from Region 4, and I have a few individual updates and then regional priorities as well. First, from Fresno County, they do have a new executive deputy director by the name of Ali Adebaye. And so that is, they will be joining DSS executive team as their new deputy director. In Kern County, we actually had a hiring pause because of the budget concerns. And so we weren't able to, we've stopped all our classes and hiring, but now that things look like they are getting better, we're able to begin hiring again. And so eligibility staff hopefully will be able to fill some of those training classes. We do have a retirement of an assistant director. Adriana Kessler is retiring. Miriam Ocampo Areola is going to be the new assistant director. We're working on getting our lobby tablets functional in our lobby. And also we've started deploying our new mobile office RV out into the community. And so far we've had some really great success with it. In Mariposa County, they did have a new appointment. Joe Lynch was appointed to the county CEO position, vacating their HHSA director. And they've named Dr. Christina Kahili as the interim director. Prior to that, Rebecca Maito was the Mariposa County CalSAWS member representative, and she is the deputy director of public assistance. In Merced County, they had 27 new family service representatives starting, and they're going to move to a task-based model in July. And then in Stanislaus County of note, their county closed their downtown service center, which provided a location for homeless individuals to pick up their EBT cards. And until another location has been identified, cards for those homeless individuals will be mailed out to an access center location. And they are also working on a core model county operational redesign effort based on the CalSAWS Get Next functionality to conduct interviews and process cases. And on a regional basis, similar to what a lot of others have shared, some of our focus has been on the contact centers, learning about the new reports, and as a priority, just making sure that that we're continuing to be able to provide those assistance through our call centers and taking advantage of the new functionality that gets released out of those call center possibilities. We are also looking at the telephonic signature process, also interested in the Fresno Gen AI and hoping to learn more about that as it can be rolled out into the future. General assistance, where some of our former C4 counties are now able to sign up to get some of that general assistance functionality into CalSAWS. And then of course, reports and data are still a priority for our region. So that's it for Region 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from PSC members? Any comment or question from members of the public? Hearing none, I think we can move to our next agenda item, which is enjoy some time back on your day, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.